Good evening, folks. My name is Lester Holt, and today we will be overviewing the Supreme Court. Now, what is the Supreme Court? The Supreme Court of the United States is consisting of 9 justices appointed for life. It's the highest court in the nation and the final interpreter of the Constitution. It has the power to review and strike down laws that conflict with the Constitution, making it a crucial check on both legislators and executive branches. The court hears a select number of cases each year, with its decisions setting precedents that shape American law and society for generations. Now, the history. Established in 1789 with its first session held in 1790 in New York City. For its first 146 years, the court lacked a permanent home, meeting in various locations, including the Capitol building, until it finally moved into its own dedicated building in Washington, D.C. in 1935. When the makeup of the court started with 6 justices in 1789 and fluctuated until settling at 9 in 1869, where it has remained since. Over time, the court has seen 17 chief justices and 104 associate justices. Now, I will pass it on to my associate reporter, Adrian Beninati.
Thanks, Lester. The Supreme Court's head justice serves as a spokesperson for the federal government's judicial branch and acts as a chief administrative officer for the lower federal courts. The sitting justice is John G. Roberts Jr., who is currently 69 years old. He graduated with a history degree from Harvard, summa cum laude, in 3 years. Graduated magna cum laude from Harvard Law. He clerked for Associate Justice of the Supreme Courts, Associate Counsel to Ronald Reagan, and was a judge in D.C. of the Federal Circuit Courts. Nominated for Chief Justice by President George W. Bush, he took office and has over 45 years of law experience. His confirmation process was pretty smooth, with a 78-22 vote approving him for the Supreme Court. Roberts voted to uphold Roe v. Wade in 2022. However, Roberts also upheld a Mississippi law that bans almost all abortions after 15 weeks. Now to Associate Reporter Etan Patel.
Thanks, Adrian. Associate Judges. The Supreme Court is primarily made up of 8 associate judges listed below. The current makeup of the court leans conservative with 6 Republicans and 3 Democrats. Let's start with Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas is 76 years old, and his background and upbringing: he was born in the Pinpoint community near Savannah, Georgia on June 23, 1948. He attended and graduated from the College of the Holy Cross in Massachusetts. Post-law school, he worked as the Assistant Attorney General of Missouri from 1974 through 1977. He was the attorney for Monsanto Company from 1977 through 1979. He was also the legislative assistant to Senator John Danforth from 1979 to 1981. He was also the Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights in the U.S. Department of Education from 81 to 82. He was also the chairman of U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission from 82 to 90. President George H.W. Bush appointed him to the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit in 1990. He served in this role for 19 months before his nomination to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court confirmation process for him was pretty straightforward. On July 1st, 1991, President Bush nominated Thomas to replace retiring Justice Thurgood Marshall on the Supreme Court. Bush won the Electoral College and the popular vote with 426 to 111 and 48 million to 41 million in the 1988 election. The confirmation process was contentious and highly publicized, as he had a lot of sexual harassment allegations made by Anita Hill, a former subordinate. Despite the controversy, the Senate confirmed Thomas on October 15, 1991, and it was a narrow vote of 52 to 48, so it was not bipartisan. His stance on abortion rights. Thomas has long argued that Roe v. Wade, the landmark 1973 decision that established a woman's rights to choose an abortion, was wrongly decided. He was consistently called for the Supreme Court to reevaluate this precedent, asserting that the Constitution does not confer a right to abortion. Voted for overturning Roe v. Wade has taken a very conservative stance on the topic. Over to Shasta.
Thanks, Etan. Next, we'll be talking about Brett Kavanaugh, age 59. He attended Yale University, graduating cum laude with a BA in history in 1987. He continued his education at Yale Law School, earning his JD in 1990. He's clerked for several judges in both Court of Appeals circuits and Supreme Court, worked as an attorney in multiple judicial offices. Additionally, he served in various roles in the George Bush administration, including assistance roles, close to the president, and eventually multiple cabinet positions. He was nominated by President George W. Bush, and he served as a judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia from 2006 to 2018. He was nominated by President Donald Trump on July 9, 2018, to replace retiring Justice Anthony Kennedy. His confirmation process was highly contentious, particularly due to sexual assault allegations. However, he was confirmed by the Senate on October 6, 2018, with a narrow vote of 50 to 48. Trump won the electoral vote in 2016 with 306 votes to Hillary Clinton's 232. However, Trump lost the popular vote 62 million to 65 million. Kavanaugh voted to overturn Roe v. Wade, but defended citizens' rights to travel to other states for abortions. His judicial history and statements indicate conservative alignment on reproductive rights, a tendency to support regulations that could limit access to abortion while maintaining that existing precedents must be followed to potentially challenge the Supreme Court. Thank you. Now I'll be passing it on to Darren Hernandez.
Thank you, Shasta. Now next to our next Associate Justice, Elena Kagan, age 64, born on April 28, 1960 in New York City. Kagan attended Princeton University, graduated summa cum laude in 1981 with an A.B. in history. She then studied at Worcester College, Oxford, earning an MPhil in 1983. Continued at Harvard Law School, graduating. Post-law school, she worked as information. Kagan's early career included notable clerkships for both circuit judges and Supreme Court justices. Then worked as an associate at Williams and Connolly in Washington, D.C. from 1989 to 1991. Kagan began teaching at the University of Chicago Law School in 1991, becoming a tenured professor in 1995. In 1999, she joined Harvard Law School as a visiting professor and became a full-time professor in 2001. She served as the Dean of Harvard Law School from 2003 to 2009. Kagan served in various roles of the Clinton administration from 1995 to 1999, including as an Associate White House Counsel and Deputy Assistant to the President for Domestic Policy. In 2009, President Barack Obama appointed Kagan as the first female Solicitor General. Supreme Court confirmation process. On May 10, 2010, President Obama nominated Kagan to the Supreme Court to replace retiring Justice John Paul Stevens. The Senate confirmed her nomination on August 5, 2010, by a vote of 63 to 37. Kagan is the fourth woman to serve on the Supreme Court. She is the first justice since 1972 to be appointed without prior judicial experience. Known for a pragmatic approach and ability to build consensus, she's considered part of the court's liberal wing. Now, her stance on the abortion right is Kagan has consistently defended the principles established in Roe v. Wade, which recognize a woman's constitutional rights to choose an abortion. In her dissenting opinions, she has emphasized that the right to abortion is linked to broader issues of personal autonomy and bodily integrity. Now, she is committed to upholding reproductive rights and addressing the broader implications of legal decisions that affect personal freedoms. Now, on to you, Eitan Patel.
And our next Associate Justice, Sonia Sotomayor. Background, she is 70 years old and she has a bachelor's degree from Princeton University in 1976. She also has a JD from Yale Law in 1979. She served as an editor as well of the Yale Law Journal when there. In 1991, she was nominated by George H.W. Bush to the U.S. Court of Appeals Second Circuit in New York Southern District. She served in that role from 92 to 98. In 1997, she was nominated by former President Bill Clinton to the U.S. Court of Appeals Second Circuit, in which she served from 98 to 2009. She is the third woman and the first Latina to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court. She felt sad and shell-shocked after all her fellow justices who were mostly conservative overturned Roe v. Wade. She says that she wants to keep fighting to re-overturn Roe v. Wade and instill a constitutional right to abortion.
Thanks, Eitan. Next, we're talking about Amy Coney Barrett, 52 years old. She was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, and received her doctorate BA from Rhodes College in 1994. In 1997, she received her JD from Notre Dame Law. She worked as a law clerk from 1997 to 1998 for the U.S. Court of Appeals for Judge Lawrence A. Silverman, and in 1998 for the Supreme Court of the U.S. Justice Antonin Scalia. She was a law professor for Notre Dame in 2002. She was appointed to be a judge in 2017 for the 7th Circuit of the United States Court of Appeals. She voted to overturn Roe v. Wade and did not believe in the right to abortion. She was nominated by President Trump in September of 2020 after the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was selected because he believed she would be loyal to the Constitution in her conservative and pro-life stance. Trump received 46.1% of the popular vote in the election of 2016. The Senate vote to nominate her was 52 to 48 on October 26, 2020. It was not bipartisan at all. All Democrats and one Republican opposed. So some objections are brought up, whereas he was deeply religious and was pro-life. Next, we'll be hearing about Ketanji Brown Jackson from Darren Hernandez Movies.
Now on to our next Associate Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson. 54 years old and born on September 14, 1970. She's the second youngest justice at 51 years old, and is the first black woman to serve on the Supreme Court. She grew up in Miami, Florida, and she is a Harvard alumni with a bachelor's in government and a Juris Doctor from Harvard Law School. She served as an attorney in private practice, as public defender, and has argued in front of the U.S. Court of Appeals D.C. Circuit. She has also worked 2 years for the United States Sentencing Commission from 2003 to 2005. She was the federal public defender from 2005 to 2007 and served in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia from 2013 to 2021. She took seat as Associate Justice on June 30th, 2022, appointed by Joe Biden. Now, her confirmation process. Jackson endured nearly 24 hours of questioning from the 22 members of the Senate Judiciary Committee, spanned 4 days in March. Now, her potential reasons for objections could be that Senator Josh Hawley questioned Jackson for an alarming pattern. Jackson was accused of lenient sentences to defendants convicted of child pornography offenses. Although past this controversy, she had a vote of 53 to 47, as all 50 Senate Democrats had voted for Jackson. However, 3 Republicans, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and Mitt Romney, supported Jackson's nomination, allowing very little room for bipartisanship. Now, her stance on abortion rights. In response to being asked if Roe v. Wade was settled as a precedent, she said, "I do agree with both Justice Kavanaugh and Justice Barrett on this issue. Roe and Casey are the settled law of the Supreme Court concerning the right to terminate a woman's pregnancy." Now, on to our next Associate Justice. Our next Associate Justice, Samuel A. Alito. His background. Samuel A. Alito Jr. was born on April 1st, 1950 in Trenton, New Jersey, making him 74 years old as of 2024. He grew up in Hamilton Township, New Jersey, in a family with Italian immigrant roots. He had a bachelor's degree from Princeton University, graduating from summa cum laude in 1972, and had a JD from Yale Law School in 1975, where he was an editor of the Yale Law Journal. Now, his career highlights. He was a law clerk for Judge Leonard I. Garf, U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit from 1976 to 1977, and he was also Assistant U.S. Attorney for the District of New Jersey from 1977 to 1981. He was also Assistant to the Solicitor General, U.S. Department of Justice from 1981 to 1985, as well as a Deputy Assistant Attorney General for the U.S. Department of Justice from 1985 to 1987. And he was also a U.S. Attorney for the District of New Jersey from 1987 to 1990. But it doesn't stop there, as he was a judge, U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit from 1990 to 2006. And now, his permanent job he's an Associate Justice for the Supreme Court, serving from 2006 to the present. Now, his confirmation process. He was appointed by President George W. Bush on November 10th, 2005. The Senate confirmed him on January 31st, 2006 with a vote of 58 to 42. He was sworn in on the same day, becoming the 110th justice to serve on the court. Now, his judicial philosophy. Alito is known for his conservative views and has described himself as a practical originalist. He has been a member of the Supreme Court conservative bloc since joining the court. Now, his opinion on abortion rights. Alito wrote that the Constitution does not confer a right to abortion, and the authority to regulate abortion must be returned to the people and their elected representatives. Now, adding on, Alito was one of the 5 who voted in overturning a federal constitutional right to abortion that had been recognized for nearly half a century, which is Roe v. Wade. Now, on to our final observations, held by Lester Holt. thank you all for the great information. Now on to our final observations. Now, what we noticed when examining each of the nominations and confirmations of each justice, which are the trends, was many male justices were accused of sexual assault or harassment, and the women generally were more high achieving and have better and more prestigious educational backgrounds. The court is very diverse, made of women, men, black, white, Asian, and Latino people. Most of them are old, 40 or older, and most justices went to an Ivy League. Most justices also were not nominated by bipartisan, and most justices had a firm stance on Roe v. Wade. Now, here's the projected future for future decisions of the court. Now, these up-and-coming cases are to be evaluated by Supreme Court based on the right to privacy, which are these three cases. Orberg JFL versus Hodges, which is legislated marriage equality in all 50 states, as well as the case Griswold versus Connecticut, confirmed the right to birth control for married couples, and the third one, Lawrence versus Texas, declared sodomy laws unconstitutional. Now, these are interests of Trump's nominees to overturn these three cases: Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett. Now, here are our sources used. Thank you all for listening.